Hey Birch House friends, today I have something very cool to show you, and it's this. Our interpretation of the Gokstad Shield. Now this was custom ordered by our friends at the Swordsmanship Museum and Academy. They're getting ready to do a few different interpretations of Viking warriors for the Nordic Fire Festival at the dates listed here, because I don't know them off the top of my head. But before we ship this off to them, I want to take a moment to show you and talk about the build and talk about the construction and show you some of the highlights of this shield. Before I do that, I want to give you a little bit of history about the Gokstad for those who don't know what it is and why it's historically significant. So in 1880, on the Gokstad farm, just a little bit south of Oslo, the farmers there found a Viking ship on their land. And upon excavation, it was discovered to be the burial chamber of a Viking warrior or chieftain, and he was probably about 40 or 50 years old when he passed away. Now, alongside the remarkably intact Viking ship were 3 smaller ships, a tent, a sleigh, and the remains of 12 horses, 6 dogs, and a peacock. Interestingly, there was no gold or silver or weaponry found in the burial site, and it's speculated that those items were looted sometime after his burial. And on top of all that were pieces of 64 individual Viking shields. Now, it's not an understatement to say that the majority of what we know about Viking Age shields comes from the Gokstad find. So let's talk about the construction of the shield a little bit. Now, our interpretation of it is based on a paper written by Rolf Warming, who has studied the Gokstad Shield in person. And as I said before, the shield part were found in pieces, and so archaeologists and historians had to piece all the parts together to get a full image of what these shields will look like in their prime. So let's start with the back here. The first thing they discovered is that these shields were 35.5 inches in diameter. That makes them only a ½ inch from being a full 3 foot wide. And they're made from budded planks of white pine. Now, budded just means that there's no joining of the planks. They're not interlocked together. The planks are just glued end to end. And as for the white pine, it took us a little bit to find the right species, but we finally found it, got locked down onto the shield. Now, let's talk about the handle. And I'll bring this up closer. The handle is kind of a mystery to us, because only one fragment of handle was recovered. So all we know about the hand grips on the 64 shields resides in this one handle fragment. What we do know is that it was made from a hardwood of unknown origin. Now, for us, we chose ash. Ash is a common wood. It's found on axe handles and spear staves, and we just feel comfortable with that interpretation. It has this very interesting geometric cross section, or triangular cross-section. And I find this very interesting because the Trelleborg Viking shield, which is another famous shield find, also has a geometric cross-section. It's more pentagonal, but it also features that geometric cross-section. And so it's very interesting that 2 different Viking shields from 2 different regions show that same kind of thought process when designing the handle. And I'll say, as far as holding it, that cross-section does fit the biomechanics of the hand pretty well when you're gripping the shield. Now, one of the most striking features of the back of the shield is that hole that's cut in the back. We typically think of Viking shields as having a circular hole, but this one has what looks like, well, historians describe it as being heart-shaped. Everyone I've talked to said it looks like a cat's head. And so it does. So why do this? Why cut this unique shape? Well, this bit that comes down here makes for a good hook to thread rope through and hang the shield or mount the shield on the side of the ship. let's move to the front of the shield. The front of the shield, the front of the Gokstad shields had shield bosses made from iron, and we were very fortunate. Our good friends at Oogla's Night Forge hand forged us the boss that's on the shield, as well as the nails that rivet the whole shield together. All birch house shields are going to have Oogla's bosses and nails. Now, this paint job is incorrect. Of the 64 Gokstad shields, 32 of them were all yellow, and 32 of them were all black. And they would have been set in an alternating pattern, mounted in an alternating pattern, yellow, black, along the side of the Viking ship. And it would have looked like a row of yellow and black crescent moons along the side of the ship as it sailed through the waters. Now, our friends at the museum asked us to split the shield between yellow and black so they could have a single shield but be able to represent both colors. Now, Viking Age paints are lead based, and we didn't want to give our friends at the museum any lead poisoning, so we opted to use milk paint from the Real Milk Paint Company, and it just gives us a lead paint adjacent look. And as for the colors, in 2017, historians and chemists came together and devised a color palette based on the colors that would have been available to Viking people of the 9th and 10th and 11th century. And so that is the colors that we chose for the front of the shield here. Now, continuing on with paint, the paint was found directly on the wood of the shield. And so we can extrapolate from that these shields didn't have any kind of cover. They were just a bare wood front. However, organic material was found on the face of the shield, and it could indicate that at one time these shields were covered with linen that had been treated to be translucent. But that really is just a guess. I want to talk about one more thing about the shield that I think is just very cool, and that is the edge, which is beveled or chamfered, just like the trelleborg. The trelleborg has a beveled edge, a slightly bowed edge, chamfered edge, if you will. However, what makes the Gokstad unique is it's actually double beveled or double chamfered. So about 10 centimeters in from the edge, it has a gentle slope towards the rim, and then about 3 centimeters in from the edge, it has a much steeper second bevel towards the rim. And this takes the shield from about 8 millimeters thick to about 1.5 millimeters thick. And you can actually see that double bevel right here. Now, why do this? Well, for the same reason you might put a fuller in a sword, it allows you to lighten the shield a bit without doing anything to the structural integrity of the shield. Secondly, from a builder's perspective, it does seem to me this also keeps it from warping. You do have a problem with Viking shields kind of wanting to warp outward, and I found that it seems like with that double bever, it kind of seems to want to draw back towards the user. So that could be a potential reason. Whatever the reason, this was such a cool project to do. We were so happy to do it for our friends at the museum. We hope you guys love it. Thank you so much, and we'll see you all in another video.